Hello. Right, a shrub rose for you today from David Austin Roses, which for me has been a little elusive. For no real fault of the actual roses itself, this is my second time around with this particular shrub rose, bred and introduced in 2008. This is young Lycidas, an absolute stunning rose, bred and introduced by David Austin Roses in 2008. Now, a little bit of background of why this rose has proven a little bit tricky for me. I actually bought this one bare root way back in 2020 and a nest of rats actually moved in underneath my rose and basically made their home there, and the poor thing actually died. It had to be replaced, and I'm now very pleased to have this one back in the garden. Unfortunately, I don't have a huge amount of bloom to actually show you at this stage, but we're pressing on through June, so I wanted to showcase this one because there is a real thirst for this particular colour, and this rose has some wonderful attributes that are now running through, and you're going to be seeing in a lot more of the David Austin breeding program. So young Lycidas, bred and introduced by David Austin Roses in 2008, is an English shrub rose reaching approximately 4 feet by 4 feet. So it's a really nice sized shrub without being overpowering or too big. It's just about big enough to be putting into a pot, but also growing in the garden as an actual statement piece. There's a thirst for this particular colour now that Munstead wood and Darcey Bussell and Falstaff have now been discontinued. There is a real hunger for these very deep rich colours. This is a crimson red with a lovely magenta colour, and you can see that the hoverfly interested in this one. But this, as this particular rose aged, it's a lovely deep cupped flower. As you can see if I turn the bloom there, you get this lovely magenta, strong crimson, red, pink in the centre, and then round the outside you get this lovely silver grey bleaching. Now, you've heard me talk about this on several occasions, and it's something I talk about an awful lot when it comes to Princess Anne, a really strong favourite of mine here in the North Lodge cottage garden. This lovely magenta colour that runs up the side of Princess Anne as it aged, you get the same kind of colour up the sides of young Lycidas just as the flower starts to fade. The flowers are a little bit on the floppy side. That is a little bit of a drawback, but this particular rose has some wonderful characteristics you're going to see rippling through into the new breeding program with David Austin, sharing characteristics and scent characteristics with, for instance, new additions like Gabriel Oak. This particular rose is a little bit on the weak side. It does suffer with a small amount of black spot and does defoliate itself if it gets a little bit stressed. But unfortunately, that's one of the things you see when a rose produces blooms quite so beautiful as this, with a fragrance so strong. The other thing you're going to have to bear in mind is, much like a Munstead wood, it does absolutely get covered and laced with very small, tiny, I mean, they are, I don't know if the camera's going to pick them up. They are very small indeed, needle sharp. They will really draw blood if you happen to get caught up in this particular rose. And much like Munstead wood and a lot of the other combination roses we're seeing coming out of the David Austin breeding program, you've got this lovely combination between a green stem, this is the small details, green stem with the barbs with the lovely sort of apricot burgundy tinge to them. The new foliage is deep emerald green with an olive tinge and that lovely red scarlet edges around the outside, signaling that this particular rose is going to be very deep and rich on its actual scent and colour palette. Flowers are born quite freely, or there is a large flush of blooms in late June. It's then going to flower on and off all the way through to the very back end of October. So very much like Munstead wood, with this huge flash of flowers in June and very early in July. It's then going to have a little rest, and you're going to have lots of blooms coming in different times all the way through to the season, right into the back end of the season, where that colour that it really intensifies. You get much deeper colours. And if you're familiar with the likes of Falstaff or what's the other one? Anyway, Falstaff, you get that lovely rippling in the very center of the color as that color really intensifies towards the back end of the season. But this particular rose is one of the most fragrant in the collection at the moment. So if you're really longing for a deep colored rose from David Austin Roses, which has a very strong fragrance, This particular rose is one that you're going to have to look out, and you're going to have to overlook. It's slight susceptible to disease and a little bit of leaf drop and a little bit of black spot. You're going to have to overlook the fact that it actually has quite a lot of thorns, and you're going to have to really focus on the positives on this, because it really is the fragrance. Goodness me, it's wonderful. It is very heady. It's full of mirth. It's full of old English rose fragrance, and by that I mean we're talking about those rich, deep, sugary smells. You've got heavy notes of blackberry and apple, upper notes of elderflower, and of course the back edges of citrus, so grapefruits and green tea right at the very back. This particular rose is going to score really highly on my 10-star fragrance rating. This one is going to score a whopping 8, which is really up there and really high. This rose is Young Lycidas from David Austin Roses. It's an absolute beauty. If you can find it the right spot in the garden, my suggestion would be to put it into dappled shade. Don't give it too much sun. Give it plenty of mulch where you're going to avoid stress. Keep it well watered, and it's going to reward you with these beautiful, rich, deep crimson blooms with this beautiful magenta silver tinge to the outside, and the fragrance. All the romance and love that you want from a particular rose. At an 8-star review on the fragrance on this one particularly, so it's as well worth growing if you have the space.